I had no idea. I had none. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't say that I don't know. And so I looked down and I thought, man, I need to come up with something quickly. And the gentleman sitting to my left had a nameplate that said Bruce Benbrook, Stock Exchange Bank, Woodward, Oklahoma. And so I thought, well, that sounds good. So I said, I've actually been thinking about going into banking. And everybody at the table was like, no, we had no idea. And I said, oh, yeah. I said, it's a very recent decision, which is true. It was about 10 seconds recent.
When the going gets rough, you know how the saying goes. Sometimes things happen. Life happens, and it's not always our fault. In this podcast, we'll feature real-life testimonials from people like you, from good times to bad, funny memories and hard lessons learned. Everyone has a story, and everyone has been there. From business owners to parents to young adults, the Hive Five aims to tell stories of overcoming the struggles of adulting while celebrating the little victories of life. In each podcast, our guests will give insight to 5 key takeaways from someone who's been there and done that, leaving you better than when you started. Thanks for listening today. My name is Kagan with BriteBee, where insurance quotes just don't sting. We also have Catherine Parker on, but I don't know exactly where she is. I know she's at a family reunion somewhere at the beach and probably doesn't have much time for us, but hopefully she'll pop on at some point. Today, we are really excited to sit down with Sean Kouplen, the chairman and CEO of Regent Bank, headquartered in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Sean has been a bank president or equivalent in different banks across Oklahoma since he was 23. He's written multiple books, serves on multiple boards, and is very active in his community and his church. In fact, he just got back a couple weeks ago from a mission trip to South America, which I heard was life-changing and phenomenal. Thanks so much for taking time for us today, Sean.
My pleasure.
Well, Sean, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, I've been very, very fortunate in my career. I mean, there is no question about it. I grew up on a farm in Beggs, Oklahoma, just south of Tulsa, about 25 miles, and honestly thought that's what I would do for the rest of my life, and it didn't work out that way. And so I ended up really by happenstance in the banking business. And just briefly, here's how I ended up in banking. So my dad and I had kind of decided that going into ranching probably didn't make sense at the time for a variety of reasons. And so I'm headed back to OSU to school. I have a Board of Regents dinner to attend on Tuesday evening. So this is a Sunday, we decide. Tuesday evening, I attend the Board of Regents dinner, and our university president, Jim Halligan, had invited me to attend, and it was him and myself and 5 members of the Board of Regents. And so we're at dinner, and I know Dr. Halligan is just trying to make a conversation, and he says, Sean, I've been meaning to ask you, what are you going to do when you graduate from college?
I have no idea.
I had no idea. I had none. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't say that I don't know. And so I looked down and I thought, man, I need to come up with something quickly. And the gentleman sitting to my left had a nameplate that said Bruce Benbrook, Stock Exchange Bank, Woodward, Oklahoma. And so I thought, well, that sounds good. So I said, I've actually been thinking about going into banking. And everybody at the table was like, no, we had no idea. And I said, oh, yeah. I said, it's a very recent decision, which is true. It was about 10 seconds recent.
That's true.
They asked me a bunch of banking questions that I make up the answers to. And as we're leaving, Dr. Halligan literally changes my whole life when he says, Sean, I have a good friend that owns a bank in Oklahoma City. Maybe I can help you get an internship in banking. I didn't know you were interested in going into banking. And so he helped me get an internship at MidFirst Bank in Oklahoma City, and the rest is history. I ended up working there, going back to work there after school, worked in a variety of community banks, and then at the age of 34, had the opportunity to purchase Regent Bank.
what made you fall in love with banking? Because you definitely did not love banking when you decided.
Yeah, I really didn't know anything about it. My mom had been a bank teller and had worked at a bank, so I knew that part. But yeah, it just wasn't anything I had ever even considered. Honestly, I hadn't even thought about a career period until that moment. Really, what continues to draw me to banking and did at the beginning was the perfect match between numbers. I really like numbers. I really like people. And so in this business, you get to do analysis. And even in my current role, obviously we're dealing with our balance sheet and P&L and investor money and all those types of things. But really the fact that when done right, we are partners for our clients. We both want them to do well. The better they do, the better we do.
Right.
And I just love that. I love having a whole bunch of business partners and best friends running all over the place. So.
Yeah, and you're in banking, but you also have lots of other things that you enjoy doing too in business as well, right? And you and your wife are kind of partners in crime. Is that right?
We are. So she is an executive with an oil and gas firm here in Tulsa. So she's been very, very successful. She's definitely the more impressive of the Kouplen family. I promise you, if you ever have her on the podcast, I'll get no more views. Yeah. And we've made a number of other investments over the years, and we just love business. We love, I really do. I love strategy. I love employees. I love developing happy employees, and we just really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's great. So you bought Regent Bank about 10 years ago in the 2008, which is really the same year of the economic downturn, right?
Right.
So I want to hear a little bit about the struggles, because I can only imagine that there was it wasn't the easiest route.
Well, Keegan, you are an entrepreneur, so you understand this. But let me tell you, when I say that you cannot buy a bank at a worse time than we purchased Regent Bank, I truly am not exaggerating. If you look at 100 years of economic data, okay, and you look at the one moment that was probably the worst time, it was April the 1st of 2008. This is no joke, and here's why. Up until April the 1st of 2008, the GDP was positive. There were some rumblings that the economy was softening, but there wasn't nothing material. And we buy the bank. Immediately, the GDP turns negative, literally that month. That is the month that the GDP turns negative and begins to, the economy goes into a massive free fall due to the mortgage debacle and many, many other things. But it was, needless to say, it was very, very difficult. We had probably 6 months where we thought, this is going to skip Oklahoma. Oklahoma's insulated. We're going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. And then by the fall of 2008, it became really obvious that Oklahoma was going to struggle too, as were we. The bank we bought was already a troubled bank. It was under a memorandum of understanding from our regulator. They had already had challenges, but that was always kind of my specialty, was going in and helping turn organizations around. Yeah. But I had never done it in an economy like this. So by the spring of 2009, it looked very, very rough.
So what did you do?
I cried a lot.
Yeah, this is worse than just starting a business on your own from zero, and then saying, well, there's bad economy, so I stop or whatever. I mean, you purchased something.
Well, yes, and what really magnified the pressure was the fact that I had gone out and raised $15.5 million of other people's money, as well as everything we had to purchase this bank. And so when the loans began to go bad and we began to lose money, the stress was very, very significant. And honestly, when we reached the spring of 2009, I was really having a struggle to function. I mean, every day seemed to get worse than the day before. I know all of the biblical passages about not worrying, but the reality was I just couldn't help it. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. It was really very difficult. And I had some advice from a very good friend of mine, Gordon Greer, around that same time. He was really my mentor. And he told me about his experiences in the 80s and how difficult it had been, and that he had learned that all you can do is your best. The only thing that you can do is your best. When you get up in the morning, he said he would look in his mirror and tell himself, Gordon, go do the best you can do today. And he said he would go out into the world, and both of us had the same experience where every day was very, very challenging. And he said he would come back home and look back in that same mirror and say, did you do your best? And if the answer was yes, that is all you could do. You couldn't control. He couldn't control interest rates and oil prices. Mm-hmm. I couldn't control the stock market going from 14,000 to 6,000. And so that advice really propelled me through and got me to where I thought, well, I can do that. I can do my best every day. May not be able to control the outcome, but I will do my best. And it was a tremendous blessing. We had a really miraculous capital injection that would take another podcast to explain. Right. But it was truly miraculous, a $3 million capital injection when that was exactly what we needed. And it came through a government program, interestingly enough, called the Capital Purchase Program. And once that came in February of 2009, that really shored up our balance sheet, and we were able to get things turned around.
Wow. That's amazing. I can only imagine.
It's a lot more fun to tell the story about it now than it was to go through it. But it was a very remarkable time in my life.
Well, and I would assume that you don't look at anything the same.
No, I really don't. Honestly, from a personal perspective, I learned that I don't have near as much control as I thought that I did. Yeah. I learned that there is, God is in control of our life and of our business, and we really turned it over to Him. And thankfully, the result has been 51% annualized growth for the next 10 years and 1 million awards. And we look a whole lot smarter now than we did back in those days. And we just feel very, very blessed. Got an amazing team.
Sean, it's hard for a lot of people, even for me, with starting another business and from ground zero. And sometimes I wonder, like, what the heck am I doing? I had a growing business. Why did I sell it? But it's, it was an opportunity and that we had, and we took it. We had the option to take it or not.
Sure.
But it's really difficult, for a lot of people to look at the success, let's say, of Regent Bank and think that it just happened overnight and not consider the struggles that you all went through. And, a time where you may have not been Regent Bank. And so what do you say to that?
I think that the number one trait that I have learned from successful leaders and entrepreneurs is perseverance. And it really is that simple. I mean, what you see is that everyone goes through challenges. Everybody that you and I look at and we admire, they have been through times when it just didn't look like they were going to make it. And some persevere and some don't. And so, the first thing I would say is you just cannot give up. And I know I sound like Winston Churchill at his graduation speech, but it is the truth. I mean, many, many days did I want to give up. And honestly, the main reason I didn't was because I had no other option.
Right. No other choice.
Right. So, I think that's very important. Two, I think that many times we put pressure on ourselves that is not real. I mean, the fact is, most organizations and most people run into challenges in their life. If you are chasing your dream and it doesn't work out for whatever reason, and you have done the best you can do, there is no shame in that. The only shame is when you quit and give up. And so I think it's important to also just keep things into perspective. There are a lot more important things in this world than, our P&L and our balance sheet and our stock price at the end of the year. And I think we need to focus on those.
Definitely. So you're involved in the community quite a bit, and also nonprofits. Tell us a little bit about what your passion is in that area.
I've always been drawn to nonprofit organizations. There are so many wonderful ones that do such a good job. The ones that I am involved in, I'm an elder at our church, South Point Church. I'm chairman of 2 boards, OSU Tulsa, as well as a hospitality house here in Tulsa. And it's almost like Ronald McDonald House, but for people of all with patients of all ages. So we provide affordable housing and prayer for those people. I'm on the board of MetaFund, Salvation Army, and the OSU Foundation. And I just think that, number one, it adds a variety to life. Selfishly, it adds variety.
Sure.
So if all you're doing is coming to work and going home, come to work, go home, come to work and go home, that's very important. If you have a family, to spend time with that family. But I also think it's important to have variety in life, to where you're contributing in a number of ways. Number two, I just think, to whom much is given, much is expected. And I don't think I could, in good conscience, not give back to the community in some way. And in number three, to be honest with you, I make great relationships this way. They're pure. I'm not cold calling them to try to beg for their banking. Sure. We're just becoming really, really good friends. And many of my best relationships have occurred because of involvement in nonprofits. So you're blessed more than you bless others, for sure.
So how do you do that? One of the struggles that I have in going out and being involved, we've got the work, and that takes almost all your time anyways. And then you've got your family at home, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I gotta go home so I can see my kids. So how do you balance all of that? And I know your kids are a little bit older than mine right now, but how do you balance all of that? Do you bring them with you so they can experience the same things that you are? Or how do you spend time with your family even when you're doing all of those things?
Well, clearly, when you can bring them with you, I was just able to take my daughter on this mission trip to Brazil, and it was life-changing for both of us. That is ideal. Sometimes things occur during the day. They're in school, so that's obviously not possible. And so, I think my answer from personal experience would be the priorities are family first, in the order of what you just mentioned, work second, and community activities third. So we cannot compromise our family. We cannot. And what happens is you go through seasons in life. There were, in all honesty, when I was your age and I had younger kids, I was too involved, and it jeopardized my marriage. And it was not good. That was not a good idea. Now, my wife is also very involved. Our kids are a little bit older. They have activities of their own. And so it makes a lot more sense. And so the giving back in the community is wonderful, but it has to fit within the confines of spending time with your family and providing for your family. So that would be my answer. And each person just has to figure that out, what that right balance is for themselves.
Right. Catherine, I see that you're on.
Hey guys, sorry. I'm sitting here listening in and I'm not contributing. Hi Sean, how are you?
Wonderful. How are you?
Good. I'm great. I'm actually sitting on South Padre Island with my toes in the sand, so I apologize for joining a little late here.
Thank you for rubbing it in.
Right.
Oh goodness. Well, hey, I'm sending y'all good beach vibes.
Yeah, thanks. I'm feeling them.
Well, Sean, I think that everything that you've said so far is so valid, and I love that you have a little bit different take than some of the other entrepreneurs that we've heard from, because just giving my feedback here, compromising your family I mean, I agree. That's just the one thing that you cannot do, which is so great for people like our team and BriteBee and being able to work remote. You know, nobody has to make those sacrifices. And so I love that bit of feedback that you gave there. That's awesome.
Well, hopefully, you know, we all have understanding and supportive families that, you know, they realize that particularly when you're starting a business, it's a significant stressor and it's a significant commitment. But there is, and I've always had that. My wife has always been super supportive, but there is a limit, you know, to where you can take that, to where the person begins to feel neglected. And again, that is not a mistake that I would recommend to any of your listeners.
Well, and personally, it's extremely encouraging. And also, you know, I struggle with that daily. And, you know, I think I actually struggled with it more over these last weeks, and have come to a point where, you know, in the end, all of this just doesn't matter.
Well, it sure doesn't matter if you're alone.
Yeah. When you're sitting by a computer.
Exactly. And the kids and the wife are packed up and headed to her mother's house.
Right.
I mean, that definitely puts things into perspective. And so, yeah, I think, you know, we become so hyper-focused on our professional goals. And I think achievement is great. I think setting goals is great. I think it motivates us. I think it's very, very important, but I just don't think you can do it at the risk of what's most important to you in your life.
Sean, how would you say, I mean, I know you've talked a little bit about community involvement, but how would you say that being an entrepreneur and having, you know, your own business, how does that help you serve others? Because I know that you get to make some really make or break decisions in the baking industry. And, you know, you help people achieve things that they didn't think were possible, you know, without the funds. And so I can't imagine what that's like when you get to be a part of somebody else's vision.
You know, it's very interesting. And I was thinking about this actually preparing for this call. And my motivation has really it's really evolved over time. When we first began, the motivation was survival, which you guys can appreciate. Then it really became about the numbers. I really wanted to be the best financially. I needed to bring the numbers through for our shareholders, you know, and that type of thing, you know. And then it became about the clients. I really became passionately involved with our clients and helping them, and we work with them in so many other ways. You are right. The funding is one aspect, but a lot of people can do that. We work with them, you know, in strategy and in people and in, you know, bringing them things that we've learned from a business owner perspective. And so that was really, really, and is really, really fun for me. And interestingly now, you know, my kind of glow and motivation really comes from the development of our employees. You know, we started out with 3 people here in Tulsa, 40 people bank-wide. Now we have about 50 here in Tulsa and about 105 bank-wide. And I meet with every employee after they've been here 90 days. And I love talking with them and hearing them say that they haven't felt love ever at an employer like they feel here, but also maybe even ever than what they felt here. I mean, I had an individual tell me last week in their 90-day meeting that they had never felt love in their life like they felt at this company. Wow. And so that is very, very meaningful to me. And so that's really what drives me now, is I want us to continue to grow and be successful so that we can continue to enrich the lives of our employees. So I think that's what kind of makes me tick.
Definitely.
Sounds like y'all got an awesome team there at Regent Bank.
It's an amazing group of people, and everybody wants to give credit at the top, and that's not accurate. We've just been very, very blessed to attract a wonderful, just a kind of a magical, very caring group of people. But I think it's important to note that these things evolve over time. I mean, if I had come straight out of the blocks when we bought the bank and we were about to go under, and I'm focused on employee perks and benefits and culture, we probably wouldn't be around. And so there's kind of a time and a season, I am learning, for everything. And it's just kind of an evolution and growth that takes place throughout your life cycle, both as a leader and as a business.
In true high five fashion, Sean, we want to hear your 5 key takeaways for all of our listeners today, whether that's as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as somebody in the banking industry, maybe even just somebody who's looking for a good company to work for. So go ahead and share those with us if you will.
Sure. Yeah, I would be happy to. I've given this some thought, and it's really hard to come up with 5, but let me give you what I think my top 5 would be. Number 1 is I think we need to strive for balance. There are seasons of life where you don't have it quite so much. You've got to put an emphasis here or there. But I do think that our goal, whether it's physical, mental, and spiritual balance, or whether it's family and work balance, I think that should always be our goal. And the train wrecks that I have seen are when people completely lose that balance, and they may be extremely successful at work and lose their families, or vice versa. And so I think that's number 1. Number 2 is I have learned that it's all about the team. I think leaders get a little bit too much credit. And I think behind every CEO whose pictures plastered all over the internet and the paper are hundreds of really great people that are really doing the work each and every day. So as a leader, I think you've got to focus on others more than yourself. 3, hire really good people and let them do their job. I had a friend tell me once that you can either grow or you can control, but you cannot do both. You can't control and grow. And so I think we've done a pretty good job here of putting great people in their spots and letting them run and use their common sense. And it's really remarkable what people can do whenever you give them the authority to do it. 4 is kind of a random one, but it is get up earlier. Many of the challenges that I have had in my life, I have been solved by getting up earlier. I want to exercise, but I don't have time. Get up earlier. I want to have a quiet time in prayer or meditation. Get up earlier. I'm not organized when I get to work. I feel behind from the time I get here. Get up earlier.
Don't tell my wife that.
There are many things that really can be solved by getting up early. Now, again, here's my disclaimer. Hey, when I had little kids and they weren't sleeping through the night, this was a lot harder to do.
We were getting up earlier.
I probably wasn't, but I do think, generally speaking, for most of us, that is a practice and a habit that can make a huge amount of difference.
I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now that number 4 is definitely a personal struggle of mine.
Noted. I'll remind you.
And for a lot of people. And I would just say, one of the things that I do, not to get too detailed here, but a lot of times you can just shift your hours. And so I still get the same. I get up at 4 o'clock every morning, 3:57 to be exact. And so I have 3 minutes.
Right.
On my way to the coffee pot. But I just moved going to bed earlier. I mean, instead of sitting there watching the late night news and dozing off in the recliner, I just get into bed a little bit earlier. I get the same sleep, but man, I've already gotten a day's work in. Or prayer or exercise or whatever, by the time most people get up. And it's a tremendous advantage. I'm telling you, it's really.
That's unreal.
And then the last one is to be principled. And let me give you 2 examples of this really quickly. And this is one I feel very, very strongly about. The big change at Regent Bank occurred when we adopted as an executive team a set of core values, and those were based upon our best employees. We just looked at our very best employees and said what made them great, and that is how we developed these core values, which you can find on our website. Well, we stacked hands and said, okay, our commitment to each other is that if any employee cannot live by these core values, they will get one warning, and then they will be asked to go to another place of employment. And we have had to do that several times over the years, but it is remarkable when you get an organization that is all behind this set of values, what they can accomplish. And then the second example I would give is about 2 years ago. Faith is obviously very important to me. And I began to get a very clear feeling that I needed to start a devotional for our team. And I came to my executives and said, guys, I'm really feeling like I need to start a devotional for them. And they said, that's crazy. We're going to get sued. You can't do that. I worked at a place that tried that. And, that guy got sued and blah, blah, blah. And so I thought, well, maybe not. But the feeling just didn't go away. And so we stuck to our principles and started this devotional. Well, the devotional has now grown from really 7 people that first day around the boardroom table to over 10,000, and some days 12,000 nationally in over 27 states, callers from over 27 states. So I just think it's very important that as leaders of our homes, leaders at our schools, leaders of our community, that we live by a set of principles that we will not, go beyond no matter what.
Well, Sean, we know you have taken a lot of time with us today, and I want about 3 more podcasts with you. So what we always do in true fashion is we always get you to say yes to another podcast, so that everyone can hopefully see that. And he's shaking his head right now.
I will do another podcast for sure.
How do people get a hold of you if they want to be a part of that devotion, if they want to learn more about Regent Bank, if they want to learn about all the other things you're doing? Also, I know that you have multiple videos on there that you share with the whole community of followers and everything else about your employee engagement and the community that you strive for there and your principles there. Sure. What are the best ways to find out?
Yeah, I think everything is available. Our website is regent.bank, regent.bank. And if you go to the resources tab, you will see the daily devotional. You'll see Regent Elevate, which is the videos that we do. You'll see a number of free business programs that anybody can participate in right there. And if you look under the Contact Us menu, you can find my contact information as well.
Well, we want to thank you again for being on with us, and we want to remind everyone to subscribe to the podcast. Do it now so you don't forget, and also give a review on what you think about Sean Kouplen. There's so many good things to say, so tell us what you think about this interview. Also, don't forget, if you're looking for insurance quotes that don't sting, try out BriteBee.com, click Get a Quote, and you'll find qualified insurance agents of your choice. Guys, have a wonderful day, and we will see you next time.